Hey, good morning. Morning, Christopher. My name's Brad Brogdon. You know me well, but I'll introduce myself briefly. I'm the board chair for the Charlotte Alliance Young Professionals Group, and I'm an architect with Gensler here in Charlotte. Thanks for being with us, Chris. You want to tell us very briefly just a little bit about yourself and your role?
Sure. So, Brad, look, thanks for having me. Look forward to sharing a little bit about my background. My name is Christopher J. Smith. I'm a native of Nashville, Tennessee, and I realize that's a bad word in Charlotte. When you think about hospitality, you think about economic development. Those two cities go up, head to head every day. So, um, grew up in Nashville, went to Middle Tennessee State University, where I met my now wife, and bounced around the country a bit. And now I'm a commercial banker with JP Morgan Chase, which in some states um, they see us as a newcomer to the city, but I'm excited that we have an opportunity to build a pretty cool brand and continue the narrative of great work here in the city of Charlotte.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. And I guess I'll add a segue to that. You want to tell us just a little bit about your role on the Regional Business Alliance Young Professionals Board?
Sure. So I sit at a couple of different helms at the Regional Alliance and the YP Board, one of which I'm a member at large, which I help be a liaison from a few of the committees to our executive committee, but also sit on the executive committee as well. And then also I sit on our committee of board development. So I'm one of the guys that help identify the next future of talent and the future resources for the board going forward, and which has been interesting this year because we haven't had all of the amazing events in person. And I can walk up to you at the bar and see you in the restaurant and see you in the parking lot and introduce myself. So it's been a unique experience, but I've loved being a part of it, and it's been an amazing experience thus far.
Yeah, and I think to tie things together between maybe your work life and your board life, we try pretty hard on the board to match people's maybe passions with things that they get to work on. Do you want to talk about some things that you're passionate about within your career, whether it's at Chase or on the board?
Sure. So the most passion that I have in my day to day is really the ability to build and nurture sincere, authentic, and candid relationships. And I think in my day to day as a commercial banker, I'm working with privately held clients throughout the western part of North Carolina, and I'm building relationships and helping build strategy with them and how we can take them to another level and help strategize their stability. But even on the YP board front, it's being able to understand my constituency in the city of Charlotte. We're all young professionals in this cohort and community, and how can we come together and learn from each other, build off each other, and make sure that we're curating an environment of success here in the city of Charlotte. So in the 5, 10, 15 years from now, we can all live in a Charlotte that we've imagined.
Yeah, I love that. And so and that's a good segue here, but what do you maybe hope to see in the Charlotte region in the next 5 or 10 years, and maybe the impact that our group can hopefully have on that future?
Well, in the spirit of being still in a safer at home or quarantine state, I would love to see us out and about in the world, safely, securely, in a healthy manner. But in 5+ years, I want to see us YPs seeing the fruits of our labor. And by that, I mean, during this COVID period, we've been stressed and stretched. So everything that we've been learning, growing, and developing on, we're going to see what that looks like in 5 years. From now until then, we're going to see all of the tricks and tips that we've taken from our senior partners and from our senior leaders in our organizations, from our churches, our communities, our nonprofit partners, our neighbors, and we've been sucking all that information up so heavily up until now. And I would hope to see that in 5 years, we are leading the circles in the business community. We are leading the circles in the political community, the nonprofit segment, in education and policy. And we're helping, as I mentioned before, at that point, living and building the Charlotte that we've had imagined for us, thanks to those that have set the example.
Yeah, I love that. And you know me pretty well as a glass half full kind of guy. So it's sort of hard to call a pandemic anything other than terrible. But on sort of the optimistic side, I know it's challenged you, it's challenged me, it's challenged the board, and it's really challenged everybody. But what do you think you've learned as a result of that? And I'm sort of tying this to your last response. Are there maybe some things that we can take with us, lessons learned from how we've had to adapt in this pandemic to what the future might look like?
Sure, adaptability is key. And you always have to be nimble and flexible to find success in any situation that you're in. In my world of business development, you lose a deal. How do you learn from that to go to the next one? And you look at the pandemic, how can you take such a strenuous situation for success? So one, I am very cognizant that the pandemic has impacted families differently, right? So from my perspective, I've been able to find a glimpse of hope and inspiration because I can stay home with my girls. A wife and two young girls here at home, and I know that my evening is free. Up until now, I was spending 3 or 4 days a week at happy hour at an event, one of our awesome events, possibly. But somewhere in the city, building these relationships that I find so important and appreciate. But the question would come up for my wife, what time are you going to be home? You going to make it to dinner? You helping put the girls down? Are you going to be here? But now the answer is an overwhelming yes. So now the
Yeah.
ladies know that I will be home for them. So it's truly an emotional roller coaster to be stuck in home for such a long period of time. But also, I have to be an optimist, and say that because we've been home, we've been able to open our eyes to things that we may not have seen otherwise. So the social injustices. You think about the level of equality we may or may not have. You think about how we need to develop ourselves in our relationships at work for the advancements of ourselves professionally when we can't just knock on the door. So again, how can we be nimble? How can we be wise? And how can we strategize for our better self, not only for us, but politically, socially, economically, spiritually, financially, and just all across the board. Hopefully, this maybe 9 months, maybe 12, whatever this is, hopefully this can be a period of growth for us and then naturally, the seasons thereafter.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks, Kris. I mean, you and I've talked about this previously, but I think if nothing else, the pandemic has maybe um, pulled away the veil of like false humanity at home. Because I feel like it was always you knew work people and didn't really know their home life, and now it's the Zoom calls and the kids in the background and the dogs in the background, and I don't know. I think there's been a little bit of a removal of the veil of home life, which maybe added some humanity to the thing. So again, I'm maybe being a little bit optimistic, but we've I have one on the way, so we've shared plenty of parenting tips. Appreciate that in the past about how you're dealing with it, but it's good. So I'm going to ask a few questions that are a little bit more board specific. Uh, but what do you love about being on the board? And a little different this year, maybe I was going to say, what has been your favorite event? We clearly haven't had them in person, but maybe talk about some of our programming and what you enjoy and get out of it.
I'll touch quickly on what drew me to the board because when
Love
I
it.
came into the city 2 years ago, I knew that I had to be engulfed in the city. I had to be engulfed in the business community. What did that look like, and how did that take place? All of my research, all of my conversations, the LinkedIn posts, the random group meetings I got brought into, it was an overwhelming amount of times that I saw the Regional Business Alliance or the Chamber, the Charlotte Chamber, that sort of iteration because the brand was changing around that time. And that was known to be a place where business happened. Relationships were sparked, relationships were maintained, and that was a place where the business community came together. So that's what attracted me to the Regional Business Alliance. And even therefore on the YP board, it was the same thing, great, awesome people from across the city, but now in a cohort of age where we're all experiencing the same things. How do we, get promoted? How do we stay engaged? How do we, live our true selves and be authentic at work? So I appreciated what we offered first because that's what drew me in to say, oh, wow, I really appreciate the group that I'm meeting with and the guys and gals that I'm engaging with at these events. And what I love about the group now that I'm inside and part of the board is we're all different. We come from a vast array of backgrounds, but we're all great at what we do. And it's not all the same things. We come together and have a different perspective on a marketing view or a different perspective on how a program may be received, right? And who should speak at that program. And I think that's important because so often we have a natural, and it's not malicious, but we have a natural gravitation to our own, right? I don't want to drive across town. I'm going to hang out in my neighborhood. I'm going to hang out where I go to church. But this allows us to cross those barriers in such a natural and a natural way that we can appreciate um, a sincere sense of diversity in our group. So amazing people on the board. They're freakishly smart, and it's always great to be around people that are more amazing than you are and smart and enthusiastic about things that they do because it's infectious. And you just pick up and you're excited for their growth and development, and it's great to be a part of.
Yeah, I love that. It invigorates me as well. And you said freakishly smart. I routinely ask myself how I got to be at the helm because it seems unlikely, let alone just getting a seat at the table because it's a ridiculous group of people that we get to work with. So I love it. Do you want to talk a little bit, and you're relatively new to the board, I'll use that term loosely since time seems like it's a pretty strange concept over the last year and a half or so. But has your experience serving on the board enhanced your professional career?
It has. And I think the biggest part here is you have to be able to speak up and speak out when no one else can. Right? And I say that because we're trying to program for a whole community of people we haven't seen in 6 to 7 months.
Yeah.
We don't know what they want. We don't know what they need. And they can send us emails and we can see it on LinkedIn, but we're trying to appropriately assume how we can add value. So I take a lot of that stuff into work and a lot of the ability to pivot and be intentional, which I think is important as well, because you can't just fall into a project nowadays. Before you could be, at the coffee machine and happen to stand there when the senior leader may come by, or you happen to overhear when you're not really eavesdropping, but you kind of hear what's going on and you make yourself available for it. That sort of stuff would happen. But I can't eavesdrop in your living room if your Zoom call's not on. So I don't know when those conversations are taking place. So I think it's another one of those pieces that come up during the COVID season that says, if you want it, you have to ask. If you ask, you have to be prepared. If you're prepared, you have to execute. And if you can do that, and you can do it amazingly well, and you really position yourself for success once this thing called the COVID season is over, and hopefully be wiser, smarter, stronger all across the board.
I love it. Quick nugget here, but we offer in a typical year, like when there's non-thing happening, I'm going to start calling it that. I like that. We offer a sort of a plethora of events and different sort of modes of events, whether it's a luncheon or a mixer or things like that. Do you want to talk about maybe one of your favorite events? And this can be something from last year or this year. We've changed programming up, but just something maybe that we've been a part of that you've enjoyed directly.
I really enjoyed our Level Up event that we had at Old Meck Brewery before we went into lockdown. And
last one.
Last one. The little did we know it was the last hurrah, right? So it was enjoy it while you can. But more importantly, I think that was a catalyst for the how to develop yourself as a YP. And we had an amazing speaker. I forget her name, but she's talked about how do we ask for the big job? How do we make sure that we make it happen? How do we do it ourselves and bring in support systems from the outside to help propel ourselves in that situation? And I think that was a great reminder before we got this thing, right? It was, don't forget the goals and objectives of your life, of yourself, of your family, and get it by any means necessary, both morally, compliantly, and all that other stuff, but make it happen. And ever since then, we've had a build effect from that event. Now, one event built on how D&I impacts that success, and I think we have coming up soon how to be a part of the political process and how to understand what that means. That's a part of that success because policy impacts our ability to succeed in some cases. So I love how it was the catalyst for growth, for opportunity that really is going to span the entire year for our programming, and it gives you something to kind of claw back to, and it's not one-off engagement.
I love it. Well, one of the things that I typically love, and I hate that I've been able to do less of it this year, is engaging with our board members on a sort of personal level. So why don't you, and I don't know if you've read this one, what's something most people don't know about you? I want to see how candid you get here.
Yeah, so I'm looking around my office to see I can talk about that, and that probably won't talk about. But most people don't know that I'm a girl dad. I have my oldest, Charlie, is 4 years old, and my youngest is Corey. She's 2.5. And they're homeschooled at the moment. My wife taught for many years, so now we do the homeschool thing. And on top of that, my wife is a children's book author. So at any given day, when my Zoom cuts off, we do the dinner thing, we hang out, we have a great time together. I constantly find myself putting them in the bed and then helping my wife find something for tomorrow's curriculum. And I mean, you have a playroom with toys and food and baskets and balls. So, an animal, what has 4 legs? Give me something with wings. I need something that starts with the letter B or Q. So I'm just rummaging through toys every night, it seems like, to find something to help teach my girl. So that's one. 2, I do the science experiment thing. I'm pretty good at that, I think. So we constantly make apparatuses in the house to help them learn. And then with the my wife being a children's book author, once I do that and get their curriculum taken care of, I come back to the office or partner with the wife in front of the TV and help her with the graphics, the design, the marketing, the posts, the videos, and then that kind of takes the other culmination of my evening. So I love it, super exciting. It's a little bit different than my day to day, right? Kind of negotiating and prospecting for um, privately held middle market clients throughout the western part of North Carolina. But when I can see the excitement on my girl's face when they do a science experiment, or when I take a break for the day and we're making bread as a part of science or pizza dough, and we're just hanging out together, those are some of the upsides that I've seen from this COVID season, and just from my ability to be at home and understand what they need on it.
Yeah, and in the financial sector, I guess you would say your your ROI is a little different, but equally as impressive on your other 40-hour-a-week job.
Oh, it is, right? That is my most important job.
Yeah.
Right? Me being home as a father, as a husband, and the way that I like to put it is being intact, right? Being engaged all day, every day. That's how I parent, and I think that's what my girls need and want, respect and support. And I want to make sure that as they grow up, they realize that although I had a job and a career that I'm developing and establishing and growing and hopefully hoping to flourish, that they still see me as I was there and I was a part, and I enjoy it. And luckily, and this is probably my biggest hoorah for this COVID season so far, they have not popped up in any Zoom that I've had. You have never seen
famous last words.
And I just
famous
feel like,
last words. No, I love that, Kris. And you're right. We've been on several calls, and I don't think I've ever seen your girls pop up. But I'm going to see if I can change that. Since you spoke it now, it's going to change over the next little bit. Well, that's great. Look, Christopher, it's always good to talk to you. And as the first in what we hope is a series of interviews highlighting several of our YPs, couldn't have started any stronger, and appreciate your time. But would you want to leave us with anything just to sort of the YP constituency in Charlotte? Maybe one last word, not necessarily about the board, but from the board, which you absolutely represent well. But anything else you want to highlight before we hop off?
Probably one good quote that a mentor of mine shared with me is that think about it as happening for you, not to you. How can we take whatever situation is at hand and use that for our benefit and our success, and expand any situation to be better than what it is, right? So it is a terrible environment to be in COVID. Families are getting ramaged through. There's pain. There's a lot of confusion, right? I think when we look into the media, we're just confused with what it means. But we should be able to identify the glimpse of hope, take away the best attributes of every situation to make it better. And again, like I mentioned before, be it professionally, spiritually, emotionally, financially, family-wise, and just allow ourselves to get to a better state and to be great. And we're given the tools to crush life. And I think if we do so in an intentional manner, we can do well for our families, ourselves, and for the communities that we serve.
I love it. Well, look, Kris, always enjoy getting to chat with you, and very much appreciate your time this morning, and hope you're able to enjoy the rest of your week.
I appreciate it, Brad. Thanks again for the engagement, the conversation. I think we have a special community of YPs in Charlotte, and that's why in the next 5-10 years, we're going to be in a whole different place. And thanks to conversations like this, hopefully, thanks to groups like ours and to leaders like you, we can definitely see ourselves in a more elevated environment.
Awesome. Thanks, Kris. Have a good one, bud.
Take care.